Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of America's oldest, most atmospheric, and honestly most baffling cold cases. We're heading way back to the year 1816 to explore a mystery that literally has it all. We're talking a desperately ill woman, an absolutely unbreakable vow of silence, a shocking financial swindle, and a secret that's been perfectly kept for over 2 centuries. So let's start with the only physical evidence left behind. And this really gets to the core of our mystery right away. Take a look at this exact, chilling 1816 epitaph from a grave in Alexandria, Virginia. It reads, "To the memory of a female stranger, whose mortal sufferings terminated on the 14th day of October 1816, aged 23 years and 8 months. Now, did you catch what's glaringly absent from that beautifully carved marble? Yeah, a name. There is no name. This single piece of stone establishes the ultimate rule of our whole cold case. Her identity is completely, utterly unknown. Okay, so let's dig into this. We really have to ask the question that has haunted historians, locals, and investigators for well over 200 years. Who exactly was this woman? And, what dark secret forced her into the shadows during the final moments of her life? Well, to figure that out, we have to look really closely at the totally bizarre circumstances surrounding her arrival. Section 1. The Arrival and the Oath. This whole tragedy kicks off with a deeply unsettling arrival on the docks of the Potomac River. It was the autumn of 1816, and a ship sailed up the river, docking right in Alexandria. Among the passengers was this couple who instantly drew the attention of the entire town. You've got this wealthy, aristocratic, and super attentive man traveling with a spectacularly beautiful woman. But the tragedy was obvious right away. She was desperately, terminally ill. And here's the detail that really sets the tone for everything that follows. She wore a heavy, dark veil that completely obscured her face from the exact moment she stepped onto the dock. From that autumn arrival through weeks of just agonizing illness, right up until her death on October 14th, her face remained entirely hidden. Now, this man clearly had means. He immediately rented out the absolute finest room at Gadsby's Tavern. He summoned the town's top doctor and a few local nurses to attend to his dying companion. But, and this is a massive but, before anyone was allowed inside that room, he forced the medical staff to swear this bizarre, ironclad oath. The terms were totally non-negotiable. 1, they must never ask the woman's name. 2, they must never ask the man's identity. And 3, if they just so happened to discover who they were by accident, they had to promise to carry that secret to their own graves. Just imagine the intense, totally claustrophobic atmosphere inside Room H during those agonizing weeks. Picture a room filled with hushed, whispered conversations and that thick, pungent scent of 19th century medicine. The nurses actually noted something truly astonishing. Even while she was completely bedridden and slipping away, the woman never once removed her veil in their presence. She was actively participating in hiding her own identity, right up to the very bitter end. Section 2. The Counterfeit Swindle. Now, what's really fascinating here is the sudden, sharp shift in our suspect's behavior after the tragedy actually occurs. On October 14th, 1816, the young woman took her final breath. The man was described as being entirely consumed by grief, sure, but his actions? They were incredibly calculated. Let's look at his exact steps. First, he purchased a premium, highly prominent plot at the St. Paul's Episcopal Church Cemetery. Second, he commissioned this massive, super expensive table-style tombstone made of fine marble. Third, to settle up his debts, he handed the tavern keeper, Lawrence Hoof, along with the medical staff, a thick stack of English banknotes. And finally, step 4, he literally packed his bags, stepped onto a ship, and vanished into the night. It sounds like the tragic end to a desperate love story, right? Well, hold on, because a few days later, when tavern keeper Lawrence Hoof went to the bank to cash those notes, the teller delivered a shocking plot twist. The bills were completely counterfeit. Yep, our grieving, wealthy aristocrat was actually a calculating con artist. He had paid for his lover's final days, all her medical care, and that elaborate burial using forged money. And honestly, this just brilliantly illustrates the character and empathy of the locals in Alexandria. The crucial point here is how they reacted to being robbed. You'd completely expect anger, right? Maybe even an unceremonious reburial to save money. But instead, despite being completely swindled, the townspeople just felt this profound sense of pity for the young woman left behind. Holf and the doctor made a conscious decision not to disturb her resting place. Amazingly, they pooled what little real funds they had left to fulfill the conman's exact instructions for that expensive tombstone. Because they had sworn that solemn oath, they engraved the stone with a lengthy, poetic verse and intentionally omitted her name and her origin. They kept their promise to a thief purely out of respect for the dead. Section 3. Unmasking the stranger. So, the big question now is trying to figure out who would go to such extreme criminal lengths to hide a dying woman's identity. Looking impartially at our cold case leads, two prominent theories have really emerged over the last 2 centuries. On one hand, we have the royal runaway theory. This suggests the woman was Theodosia Burr Alston, the brilliantly famous daughter of U.S. Vice President Aaron Burr. See, Theodosia officially vanished at sea in 1812, but historical rumors persisted that she had actually fled an unhappy marriage with a mysterious lover. On the other hand, we have the British nobility theory. This posits that the couple were high-ranking British aristocrats fleeing a massive, unspeakable scandal, perhaps even an incestuous relationship. This would perfectly explain the absolute life-or-death necessity for lifelong anonymity and that heavy veil. Both theories fit the wealth, the aristocratic bearing, and the desperate, desperate need to hide. Section 4. The enduring haunting. Let's fast forward to the present day and see how this unresolved history continues to echo in the modern world. Today, Gadsby's Tavern is a really popular museum, and Room 8 is a huge stop for visitors. Even now, staff and guests frequently report chilling sensory echoes of the past right in that very room. Some report catching the faint, undeniable scent of 19th century medicine suddenly lingering in the air. Others have claimed to look into the windows and see the reflection of a beautiful young woman, an apparition holding a flickering candle, standing exactly where the female stranger spent her final, heavily veiled days. It is such a beautifully tragic irony, isn't it? The conman's absolute demand for secrecy, enforced by a solemn oath, was eternally honored by the very townsfolk he robbed. Because of their incredible integrity, she rests under her massive marble table in the cemetery, her face never seen, her name never spoken, leaving her to hold her secret for all of eternity. Think about it. What would you do if a complete stranger demanded such a heavy oath from you? Would you actually honor it, even after discovering you had been totally conned? As you evaluate all of these clues we've talked about, the aristocratic couple, the forged English banknotes, the heavy dark veil, and that unbreakable vow, I want to leave you with this final thought. Who truly lies beneath the marble table?